The legendary Presley surname has long been associated with rock and roll aristocracy, and Elvis Presley's indelible mark on American popular culture further solidified this association. But the Presley legend has been completely thrown on its head by a simple DNA test, revealing an evil truth that can destroy the legendary family's impeccable reputation. Revolutionary genetic research has exposed a disturbing fact that the Presleys have sought to conceal, calling into doubt the fundamental basis of the family's lauded past and sending admirers into shock at the stunning revelation. Come along as we investigate these DNAs. Keeping the Elvis Presley family secrets. A life filled with stardom, riches, and intrigue was that of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. His personal life was full of mysteries that have never been solved, even though millions of people loved his music and charisma. Speculation that Elvis may have fathered children outside of his marriage to Priscilla Presley ranks high among the most talked about and emotionally charged mysteries. Elvis was a married man and a musical icon, but some think he had children nobody knew about. Several people have claimed to be Elvis Presley's hidden child over the years. Emotions abound in their stories, but so do uncertainties and unresolved concerns. The tale told by one Tim Farrell stands out among the others. After Elvis's death, his life took a dramatic turn in Jackson, Michigan. Tim claims his mom confided in him something she had been keeping from him for a long time. He was actually fathered by Elvis, she claimed. She insisted they dated for a night long ago. When Tim heard this, he set out to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Elvis was, in fact, his father. But nothing concrete came up, no matter how hard he looked. But his mom stuck to her tale the whole time. What she had said was borne out even as she lay dying in 2002. Deborah Presley was another individual who mistakenly thought she was Elvis's daughter. Born in 1956, she sought legal recognition as one of Elvis's legitimate heirs. Like Deborah, her mother thought Elvis was her dad and was on board with her daughter's argument. Initially, her claim was denied by the court. However, the court stated it couldn't determine with certainty whether Elvis was Deborah's father in response to her appeal. There was still no way to know for sure. Unfortunately, Deborah did not receive any portion of Elvis's wealth because his will explicitly stipulated that only his legitimate offspring could inherit anything. Desiree Presley was the next woman on the scene. Alexandria, Louisiana was the site of her birth in 1958. Lucy DeBarbin, her mother, claimed to have had an affair with Elvis that continued for 24 years. Lucy authored a book titled Are You Lonesome Tonight? And thought Elvis was Desiree's father. She recounted her life's events and provided compelling evidence for her assertion in her book. Lucy, like the others, was unable to present concrete proof. Yet again, the assertion was unclear. More anecdotes abound, particularly those pertaining to Elvis's military service in Germany. Many ladies came out at that time to claim they were his children. Never before has the public heard some of these tales, in contrast to those that appeared in print media. However, definitive proof of any of these would be impossible. Uncertainty surrounds all of these stories, despite their love and longing. These artifacts demonstrate the profound desire people had to feel a connection to Elvis, whether through his music, their memories, or their family. There was an air of mystique and mystery around Elvis from the time he was alive until the day he passed away, and each story just adds to that. The veracity of these accusations may never be confirmed, but they serve as a poignant reminder of the immense influence Elvis had on the globe. People are still very attached to him, decades after he died away, because of the profound impact his music had on their lives. To some, it's as if they're his biological offspring. They feel such a deep connection. These individuals keep telling their tales in the hopes of finding answers, regardless of how genuine or false they may be. In order to get to know the man who had a lasting impact on music, what, then, was going on in his romantic life to cause such a stir about his child? Stick around. The legendary rock and roll star Elvis Presley was much more than that. People all throughout the globe were enchanted by his voice, style, and charisma. Elvis Presley had a convoluted and emotionally fraught love life behind the roaring crowds, popular songs, and celebrity. A plethora of women encircled him, and with each one came a unique tale of love, intrigue, and, at times, tragedy. A few of the ladies were rather forthcoming about their memories of Elvis and their time together. As they cherished their solitude, some chose to remain silent. The fact that his life was full of both happiness and sorrow makes his narrative all the more compelling in modern times. Elvis, according to several writers, enjoyed spending time in the company of women, particularly in the evenings. His numerous partnerships were deemed excessive by some. Actress Anne Helm was one of the ladies who stated that their time together was lovely and significant. As an example of how he paid attention to the little things, she recalled that Elvis had given her a delicate yellow nightgown. In an effort to help her relax, he would occasionally give her drugs. Elvis had deep emotional ties to a number of women, but whether or not they were sexually intimate is sometimes unclear. Barbara Hearn and June Wanico, two of his early exes, both claimed they never experienced any kind of sexual intimacy with him. They had a strong emotional relationship rather than a physical one. Some people were like family to him. For example, vocalist Betty Amos and hairstylist Patty Perry. They seemed more like a brother and sister to each other. One time, June Wanico expressed her desire to keep certain details of their narrative under wraps. Elvis, according to those closest to him, shied away from personal contact on several occasions. He may have had strong personal opinions or be anxious about it, according to some. While several writers have speculated that Elvis enjoyed being near without being intrusive, no one knows for sure. These are mere speculations. Nobody understood Elvis's true feelings. There were a lot of women Elvis met over the years. Yvonne Lime, Pat Mowry, Dottie Harmony, and Pat Sheehan are among the names. As he rose to fame as a performer, he cherished each of them for their unique significance in his life. June Wanico once embarrassed Elvis in front of his pals by becoming angry with him. His posse was perpetually circling, observing everything. Subtly expressing his remorse, Elvis nodded in agreement with June. Elvis pretended like nothing had transpired once they returned to the group following a brief conversation. Julie Parrish, who co-starred with him in Paradise, Hawaiian Style, experienced an unexpected illness during filming. In an instant, Elvis snatched her up and dragged her to his trailer. The opinions of others were irrelevant to him. He merely wished to provide her a hand. He hoped his warm touch would alleviate her discomfort, so he put his hand on her side. Famed actress and former Playboy model June Wilkinson recalled meeting Elvis at King Creole. While showing her his suite, he extended an invitation to supper. He serenaded her with songs for hours as they spent the evening together. Simple, friendly, and welcoming. That was it. They shared one last dinner together the following day before bidding each other farewell and never seeing each other again. It was in 1959 in Germany that Elvis met Priscilla. They were just 14 years old. He was 24. At first, their bond appeared miraculous. Yet, as time went on, others began to doubt it. Many people thought Priscilla was a bride-to-be. She revealed thereafter that they postponed physical intimacy until marriage. Lisa Marie was born the next year after their 1967 wedding. Things evolved following Lisa's birth. According to Priscilla, Elvis informed her that he couldn't be with a mother. This caused her great pain. Their passion waned, and they finalized their divorce in 1973. Many were curious about the possibility of a romantic relationship between Elvis and Anne-Margrethe after seeing their on-screen chemistry in Viva Las Vegas. Despite Elvis's assurances that nothing had transpired, Priscilla remained uncertain. According to what Anne-Margrethe recounted afterwards, Elvis would take her on lengthy car rides and give her flower arrangements shaped like guitars. They would also have profound chats during these journeys. Actress Natalie Wood was another woman Elvis dated. Some people felt it was just for show, but Natalie's sister insisted the sentiments were genuine. Even Elvis's trip to Memphis to see his family didn't end well for Natalie. Gladys, his mother, was not fond of sharing him with anyone. Because of how this made Natalie feel, they broke up not long after. Elvis began seeing Anita Wood in 1957 that they were together for a while. Even Anita put her own professional life on hold to be by his side. During his early prominence, she stayed with him and became close to his family. Following the dissolution of his marriage, Elvis became deeply involved with Linda Thompson. They crossed paths when she was 22 years old. She had a reign as a beauty queen. For more than 4 years, they were a couple. Elvis, according to Linda, was a kind and caring man. He was always kind to her and would often give her presents. To her, he seemed like a kind guy who genuinely cared about the people in his life. However, there were certain flaws in their connection. Elvis took a lot of medicine and struggled to be faithful. He didn't consider himself a drug addict, according to Linda, as the medication was prescribed by doctors. She was there for him through thick and thin, even in the hospital. Despite her best attempts, she came to the realization that he would not change. At that point, she made up her mind to depart. Linda later wed Caitlyn Jenner, whom she later divorced. But Elvis and their time together were always praised by her. The young actress and beauty queen Ginger Alden was Elvis's companion in his final years. They were married and resided at Graceland together. After their relationship ended, Ginger authored a book in which she detailed the highs and lows of their bond. Elvis made life difficult for her because he kept weapons at home and occasionally acted out in fury. Ginger discovered Elvis's body on the day he died. Their discussion about marriage had taken place just before that. Elvis appeared elated and joyful. Returning to the stage and desiring more children were topics he discussed. Elvis encountered numerous ladies over the years. He had a lot of them while he was in the service. Okay, so tell me about this notorious military stint. We'll have to see. Something new in the spotlight. Elvis Presley stepped away from his singing career on March 24, 1958, to serve his nation. At Fort Chaffee in Arkansas, he went through the draft, an event that most young men would want to keep to themselves. But fans and reporters were there to witness Elvis's sources drafting, so they couldn't wait for him to get at the base. Putting away his performance clothes and embracing his new role as an ordinary soldier, the rock icon now faced new obstacles. Elvis maintained his innocence and refused to accept special treatment despite his immense fame. His desire to serve was similar to that of any other military service member. While some branches of the military were receptive to the notion of Elvis performing for troops or taking on a prominent public role, RCA and his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had other opinions. They reasoned that Elvis would be more revered if he just served like any other soldier, without the spotlight or special treatment. During the months of March through mid-September 1958, Elvis attended military boot camp in Fort Hood, Texas. A company in the 37th Armor's 2nd Medium Tank Battalion was his designated duty. Here he completed both his basic and advanced military training. A little break from his training was provided to him in June. His trip to Nashville and the recording of 5 tracks occurred during this period of rest. He found ways to keep involved with music even after putting it on hiatus. At the start of August, Elvis's mother Gladys became very sick with hepatitis, which caused a major change in his life. Elvis was granted permission to visit her immediately as her condition quickly declined. On August 12th, he arrived in Memphis, but 2 days later, at the age of 46, he learned that she had died of heart failure. Since Elvis and his mother had always had such a close and significant relationship, his mother's death hit him hard. He knew the hole she had created in his heart could never be filled once she passed away. After Elvis re-enlisted, he was sent to West Germany. He served in Ray Barracks in October 1958 with the 1st Medium Tank Battalion, 32nd Armor, 3rd Armor Division. Working as an armor intelligence specialist was part of his job description. In New York, he stopped to the Brooklyn Army Terminal, where Parker had set up a press conference before he left. Photographers asked him to pace the USS General George M. Randall ramp until they got the right photo. Following the photo session, the ship sailed away, leaving Elvis to embark on a new chapter in his life away from his familiar surroundings. Elvis became friends with numerous people during his maritime journey to Germany, one of which involved fellow serviceman Charlie Hodge, who had a background in the entertainment industry. Charlie suggested putting on a little entertainment act for the troops after the two hit it off right away. After hearing from his manager that Elvis should not perform in public while dressed in uniform, the king reluctantly decided to take part, although he insisted on playing piano in the background. Charlie and Elvis became closer as time went on. It ultimately led to Charlie becoming a member of Elvis's squad once they both completed their military obligations. Elvis had yet another chance to join the Special Forces for entertaining duties instead of training when the ship docked in Germany. This time, though, he turned down the offer. The commanding officer, Captain Russell, was initially assigned to his duty as a driver. However, Chauffeur Sergeant Ira Jones of the reconnaissance unit was reassigned to Elvis after the officer became tired of the undue attention he received as his driver. As time went on, Elvis was eventually allowed to live off base. His previous residences included Bad Homburg's Hilbert's Park Hotel and Bad Nauheim's Hotel Villa Grunewald. This settlement was located closer to Friedberg, the site of Ray Barracks. Later on, Elvis's grandpa and dad came along, giving him a feeling of home in a strange land. While in the U.S., Colonel Parker was never idle. He kept Elvis apprised of his progress on a number of issues through frequent letter writing. Parker made sure that even when Elvis was abroad, RCA was still pushing his music. There was the release of an album called Elvis Sales. Included a tape of his farewell news conference prior to his departure for Germany. Was assured a royalty for every copy sold. Furthermore, Parker had already negotiated lucrative film deals for Elvis's return to Hollywood after his military duty. For example, there was a $200,000 arrangement with 20th Century Fox that could have escalated to a higher sum for a second picture. G.I. Joe was likewise a project that Paramount helped set up. The blues. Still, we encountered a few difficulties. Elvis allegedly held wild parties in his Germany hotel room, according to media reports. Parker held a press conference to clarify the situation after becoming worried about these claims. Meanwhile, Elvis often vented his intense loneliness in letters sent home. His mother's presence was something he missed, while dealing with worries for the future. Even though he wore his uniform every day, the glitz and glamour of stardom seemed far away. While in Germany, Elvis was able to experience new cultures and activities. While he was there, he first encountered amphetamines. He felt they gave him energy, made him stronger, and helped him keep his weight steady. The effect they had on him quickly piqued his curiosity. At the same time, Elvis began training with a karate instructor named Jürgen Seidel. A lifelong passion developed out of what started as a pastime. Elvis would later include karate moves into his American live performances. Elvis, who was already a recognized celebrity, tried to pass himself off as an ordinary soldier. His teammates spoke highly of his humility and generosity. He decided to donate his military pay to good causes, supplied the barracks with televisions, and made sure his fellow service members had enough clothing. Despite his star status, Elvis avoided getting preferential treatment. Achieving the rank of sergeant in February 1960 was a major achievement that demonstrated his dedication to his military responsibilities. Elvis met Priscilla Beaulieu, a teenage girl, while he was in Bad Nauheim. That was when she was just 14 years old. Their friendship developed into something more, and then into a romantic partnership. Lisa Marie Presley was Elvis's only child, and Priscilla became his wife and mother. The potential negative effect of his 2-year absence on his career was a constant source of anxiety for Elvis. This concern was something he shared with Priscilla and his close associates. His worries were echoed in the media as well, but his back-home supporters did their best to keep him in the spotlight. Despite serving in the military, Elvis surprised everyone by releasing 10 top 40 singles. Even though he wasn't physically there in the studio, his popular songs like Hard-Headed Woman, One Night, and A Big Hunk of Love kept him in the charts. For albums that were compilations of earlier recordings were released by record labels during this time. Elvis Golden Records, one of the albums that achieved considerable success, peaked at number 3 on the charts. When Elvis returned from Germany in March 1960, he had changed a lot. He had transformed from a melancholy youth into a reflective and mature man, all because serving his nation had given him a sense of honor. The DNA tests that nearly derailed his carefully crafted legacy are now at the center of the matter. The Presley name was rocked by the DNA drama. Elvis Presley's life was a dazzling medley of fame, music, and adoring admirers. However, there were moments of melancholy and bewilderment concealed beneath the cheerful decorations and lovely music. In 1970, there was a particularly tragic event. A young mother, her newborn son, and a courtroom showdown that rendered many people speechless all contributed to a tense period. Entering the Los Angeles Superior Court that same August was a 21-year-old waitress by the name of Patricia Ann Parker. While Elvis was performing in Sin City earlier that year, she asserted that she had been intimately involved with him. Patricia thought that was when her son Jason Peter Presley was born. She petitioned the court to have Elvis contribute $1,000 monthly for the child's upkeep. But there was very little evidence that Patricia could rely on. An old, grainy black and white picture was all she possessed. She was pictured standing by Elvis's dressing room. Elvis frequently posed for pictures like this with his admirers. They didn't appear to be in a romantic connection in the photo. Elvis felt immense pain. He had the distinct impression that his good intentions had been corrupted. A casual exchange had escalated into a formal accusation in the courtroom. How someone could use that into an excuse to hurt him baffled him. Once again, his heart had been crushed by the burden of fame. In his pursuit of justice, the judge sought to maintain objectivity and ensure proper procedure. Little Jason, Elvis, and Patricia were all given blood tests by him. There was a significant barrier to entry for DNA testing back then. Something hurtful was meant for the kid. The collection of Jason's blood required a little incision on his heel. Patricia and Elvis were both present when it took place. The sight of the helpless infant wailing in agony infuriated Elvis. Muted rage coursed through him as he clamped down his jaw. In his mind, Patricia had inflicted such anguish on the youngster for no good cause. After reviewing the findings, it became evident that Elvis was not the biological father of the child. The harm had already been done, even though the lawsuit had ended. The emotional toll fell on Elvis alone. He had to face the hard reality once more. Being a star often meant dealing with falsehoods and lies. A different peculiar tale surfaced sometime afterwards. Eliza, a lady, stepped forward. According to her, Elvis's father Vernon Presley had a hidden daughter. If that's the case, she would be half-sister to Elvis. Many people had professed to be related to Elvis Presley over the years, but no one could prove it with any concrete evidence. Eliza intended to alter that. She may have a shared ancestor with Elvis after taking a DNA test. Stimulated, she proceeded to do additional tests. She even came across someone who claimed to be Elvis in the end. Her second attempt at the test was aided by the Cleveland local news. Her assertions were borne out by the findings. Eliza went to court about it all. Something went awry with her attempt to have her identity officially acknowledged as Presley. The judge dismissed the lawsuit not due to a lack of evidence, but rather due to the fact that it was filed in the incorrect court. She persisted, Eliza. For a second attempt, she started collecting funds. But after that, everything started to go wrong. Further details were revealed. Recent testing established that Eliza was completely unrelated to the Presleys. The once powerful story she had told crumbled entirely. There was a final dismissal of her case by the courts. Her hope of joining Elvis's family had been dashed. Next, something even more unexpected happened. A woman named Alice Elizabeth McFarland was known as Eliza. Her run-ins with the law were extensive. A lot of people started to question whether her narrative was actually true or if it was all a part of something sinister because of this. Once the king's voice had ceased to sing, the legendary Elvis Presley, whose distinctive sound and charisma won over millions of fans in 1976, was progressively receding from public view. Within the confines of Graceland, away from the prying eyes of the media and the adoring public, the king of rock and roll endured personal demons that few ever knew existed. Elvis began seeing Ginger Alden after breaking up with Linda Thompson. He asked her to be his wife in November 1976, after they had been dating for barely 2 months. From the outside, it appeared like a new beginning, but in reality, things were far from optimistic. As time went on, Elvis's health deteriorated further. He was drowsy and disoriented from taking so many medicines, and his weight had increased. His charisma and vitality, for which he was famous, were fading away. The audience during his concerts could feel the shift. He looked disoriented, tripped around the stage, and frequently forgot the words to his songs. As the once dazzling star struggled to maintain his footing, the formerly spectacular performances had devolved into quiet, melancholy moments. Less than an hour was the duration of Elvis's performance in Alexandria, Louisiana. People in the audience were perplexed because his speech was difficult to understand. Not long after that, he called off a performance in Baton Rouge owing to being sick. The 4 additional shows were rescheduled. Not wanting to disappoint his followers or people dear to him, Elvis nevertheless did his best to stick to his tour schedule. He had transformed, and his closest friends could see it. He stayed in his room for the most part, reading books about spirituality. Reminiscences of bygone days and humorous anecdotes from youth took the place of discussions about what was ahead. On sometimes, a subtle dread crept in, as if he could feel something bad about to happen. Way Down, Elvis's final single, was released in June 1977. Concurrently, a television special titled Elvis in Concert was filmed by CBS at 2 of his shows. That one in Omaha was devastating. The phrases were difficult for him to sing, and his voice was feeble. In Rapid City, the sequel, was marginally more satisfying. Despite his more robust voice, he was visibly sweating, pallid, and fatigued by the finish. In Indianapolis, Elvis Presley had his final performance on June 26, 1977. Nobody was prepared for the musical era to end. August 1st saw the publication of Elvis, What Happened? 3 of his former bodyguards, who were sacked the previous year, wrote it. The drug issues that Elvis had were laid bare in the book. He was devastated to hear about it. Keeping his troubles hidden from his fans was his top priority. By the time he offered financial incentives to halt publication, it was already too late. Everyone could see that Elvis was sick. Glaucoma, hypertension, liver problems, and an enlarged colon were among the significant health challenges he was fighting. Despite the fact that the medications only made matters worse, he continued, relying on his remaining strength. Elvis's final public appearance was on August 8th. Later that night, he reserved Libertyland Amusement Park for a small group of friends and himself. There was pleasure and laughing, and for a little second, the old Elvis came back. Unfortunately, the joy was short-lived. Elvis failed to make it to Portland, Maine on August 16th, the scheduled departure date for his next tour. He was discovered on the floor of the Graceland restroom by Ginger Alden. His respiration had ceased. It was already too late when paramedics hurried him to the hospital. The king of rock and roll was declared dead. The man was barely 42 years old. Tragedy engulfed Graceland. The burial for him took place 2 days after that. Witnesses in the thousands gathered outside, intending to bid farewell. Tragic events occurred on the way to Forest Hill Cemetery, the location where he was to be laid to rest next to his cherished mother. Tragically, a car plowed into the audience, killing 2 young women and wounding another. And the agony seemed to go on forever. Music was never the same after Elvis's death. How would you rate Elvis's impact on the world? Is there a way you see these DNA scandals? Feel free to provide your opinions in the space provided. For more interesting stories, please like, subscribe, and enable notifications.